Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream today. I have my friend Ryan with me. Ryan, how are you doing?
Vlad, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me, brother. Honored to be here.
So much is going on. So much stuff is going on, right? We were watching the the hearing, which was hilarious. But today I want to talk about the economy, the Trump economy and what he's talking about. Now, I want to bring this up. Just get right in. So just then, Trump announces formation of external revenue service to collect tariffs and potentially abolish income taxes collected by the IRS. So I read the article, looked more into it. So Trump wants to, kind of like he promised on the campaign trail, right? He wants to first, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, the elderly and their Social Security, no tax on that. But he wants to demolish the federal income tax altogether. Now, you're in finances, you're in Bitcoin. Is this doable? Do you think this can actually be done?
100%. 100%. You're already seeing it happen in countries like El Salvador, right? Where there's no capital gains tax, there's no property tax, there's no sales tax, there's no tax on digital assets. Your Bitcoin is all digital assets, no tax on any digital asset. And you're watching this country absolutely thrive. And they've just presented their first debt-free budget in 2025, where the government will be 100% self-sufficient in 2025, where they will actually be storing a surplus of their wealth. So yeah, I definitely think it's possible.
Now with Bitcoin, I want to ask you this. You're big on Bitcoin. I'm still learning about it. I mean, I have some Bitcoin. I don't even have a full Bitcoin, but I mean, I got a 1/10 of a 10th of a 10th. Is this true? Because Trump talked about making Bitcoin as one of the reserves in our government.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true that why he wants to do this is he makes it a reserve and then he takes our debt and puts it into Bitcoin?
I could see it monetizing our debt. Yeah, 100%. So you look at El Salvador, what they've done with El Salvador, right? And the loan they took out from the IMF, I think when they first, kind of developed their sovereignty and kind of got their country under control, and they put 100% of that into Bitcoin. And they've now been able to, if they wanted to, they technically could pay off the complete debt to the IMF, which would be the first country in all of human history to ever pay off their debt 100% to the IMF. And they would still have all of their Bitcoin as a reserve asset. So, take a look at the Louisiana Purchase, right? And when who I forget who bought the Louisiana Purchase. Was that Jefferson who did the Louisiana Purchase? I forget what year that was. We bought the Louisiana Purchase for what, like $15 million?
Yeah.
And look at how much that has brought back our nation because it's an asset, right? It's a property that is exponentially grown in value. So the idea is that Michael Saylor talked about it. He's like, Trump basically prints $5 trillion or takes $5 trillion, buys $5 trillion worth of Bitcoin today at 100,000. Bitcoin goes to 100 million. You then take up all of that, all of the capital, all the profit that you've made from that. And then you take it a step further and you look at, it's like a race to the last place, right? Once whatever Federal Reserve starts to print first, and they start to print these fake dollars out of thin air, and they start to use those fake dollars to buy Bitcoin, inherently, you're going to immediately trigger every single Federal Reserve around the entire world to do the same thing. And it's going to just be a flywheel of money printer after money printer to see who can basically devalue the wealth of their nation faster to acquire more Bitcoin. And then anybody inherently who has Bitcoin in that nation exponentially grows in value. Take a look at the devaluation of the dollar, right? And you're big into gold, so you fully understand, right? In 50 years ago to today, right? The average car, your first car, we're just talking about, like, I think back then it was like a Firebird or like whatever, the Model T cars or whatever the hell they were back then 50 years ago in 74. But the average price of that car, they took like the three, they took a Ford, a Dodge, and a Honda or whatever they were. And they averaged them together and it was like $2,800 for your first starter. And that was just a basic car, no electronic, anything manual, just a basic starter car. Today, that same vehicle with no bells and whistles, just your plain Jane Ford Focus or whatever we'll call it, is $43,000 new off the lot, right? That appreciation value over a 50-year period. And we're going to break it down for the house and that. So you take a look at your house, right? The same 3-bedroom ranch house on a half-acre lot with a 2-car garage. The average house back then was $17,900. Today, that average house is $438,000. So if you take a look, if we just appreciated at that same rate over the next 50 years into the future, so we go from 24 well, now be 25 to 75 over a 50-year period, your children's basic car, if you were to buy them a new, just plain Jane car for their first car, would cost you $890,000. That house, $6.9 million. So I don't think anybody watching your stream right now is going to go, yeah, my wages are going to appreciate at a rate where I can do that, where my kids are going to be able to afford that. It's insanity, right? And that's over the last 50 years, when a majority of this influx of cash has came from the last 10. So if you just do it over the last 10-year period, it's exponentially, it's like absolute insanity. It's suicide almost if you save in the US dollar. So you do nothing, you store your wealth in dollars, you do nothing, you pretty much die, right? So you have no choice but to move it into an asset that's going to appreciate, and at the very least, keep you even, which sucks to just break even. I mean, you work hard for your money. You would like to put it into an investment vehicle where it's going to appreciate at a faster rate than our government's devaluing our dollar. And Bitcoin outperforms every asset for the last 15 years, every single year. I think 1 year NVIDIA beat it, and that's about it.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Before I got into politics and content, I was in construction. In 2018, you can buy a piece of plywood for your house, brand new construction, less than $10. Under Joe Biden in 2022, it reached over $130. Right now, it's in the 70s. The same piece of plywood. Yep. All the regulations they put on it, on the construction industry, and I'm telling you, it went. So my brother, 13 years ago, built a 7-bedroom house for $150,000. Then he sold it and made like $100,000 in 2 years. Right now, that house is going for $1.2 million. No, yeah, same property, same like everything. No, like nothing has even been done to it. That it's just going up, and it's not that things are getting more expensive, like you said. It's the value of the dollar that is going down. I want to ask you this, because now there's these movements like QAnon and Blue Anon, and I'm a realist. But I have some friends that are like really into QAnon. They're like, Bitcoin is actually gonna destroy America. It's like, and that it was made by the bad guys. Like, how do I respond to that? Because I don't agree with them, but it's like, but that makes zero sense to me.
So I honestly, I do think that Bitcoin, there's a probability that it was created by the CIA, right? Now, the best part about it is Bitcoin is open source, right? So what that means is that the code has been published on GitHub. At any time, anybody can go and look at that code. And we've had some of the most sophisticated universities have taught entire courses where the smartest minds in the world from all around the world have traveled to this university and taken these courses on Bitcoin, where they've all examined this same line of code, right? And you've had nation states around the world who would do anything to absolutely destroy Bitcoin. You take a look at the IMF. They would have obliterated Bitcoin by now had they had a chance to open some backdoor and allow some hacker to get in and manipulate the code. It would have been done by now, but it can't, because it's secured by I forget what the actual number is. It's like 7 quintillion hashes of energy, which is equivalent to like, you would need to acquire 3 times the amount of energy that our entire US Navy with nuclear submarines uses on a daily basis just to attempt to 51% attack the network. And if you tried to 51% attack the network, not only would you have to take over the hash rate of it, but you'd also have to convince the nodes to take, and the chain would fork, and you'd have to convince the nodes to go and then process transactions on the new fork of this new Bitcoin blockchain, which nobody would, because it wouldn't serve their self-interest. So you have people like me that are running a node, and my node's never going to update software that's going to be against my best interest. So what's good for the collective is good for the individual. And if somebody's trying to serve their self-interest, what they're going to do is they're going to use all of that energy, which is probably going to cost them like $1.2 billion. And then they're going to get no reward out of it. So there's no incentive for somebody to attempt to carry out an attack like that. And if there was a backdoor, we would have figured it out by now. So it's almost like they created something trying to undermine, like whether it was the CIA, whether they were creating it for just a way to transfer wealth and to, carry out arms deals and drug deals and human trafficking, or whatever reason that our shady CIA would have created Bitcoin. If they did, right? And it's a big if, it would have been figured out by now. And if it wasn't, then it was brilliant the way that this man called Satoshi actually created this. Because what he did, in order to get the network started, right, he had to mine. He had to actually create a mining. He had to run the miners at first, and he had to mine the first like 1.1 million coins that were ever mined for Bitcoin. In the process of doing that, he released the code out into the cyberspace, into some of these forums. 5 or 10 or 20 people got involved in it, and they started mining it, right? Now, what Satoshi did is he's never touched that wallet. So that wallet, in theory, is the largest honeypot in the world. If you could figure out how to crack the Bitcoin algorithm and hack the Bitcoin algorithm, you would inherently be able to move those tokens out of Satoshi's wallet. So if anybody ever does, right, the first red flag you're going to see is those coins moving from Satoshi's wallet. So it's really brilliant because he's given this gift to humanity. He's never spent one. He's never used any. Now, not saying that Satoshi didn't go and start mining independently, just like the other 50 people did in the beginning, and he might be living the Bitcoin dream right now in a mansion somewhere in Malibu or wherever he's retired at, living the Bitcoin
Malibu
dream. Right? Yeah, definitely not Malibu anymore. But that's kind of like the whole idea behind it is so and you look at those what if questions, the what ifs, right? Well, the people that have been saying that for 20 years or for 15 years now, and we watched our government in their propaganda war against Bitcoin. And it's really funny, in 2011, it was just a fucking joke. It was a Ponzi scheme. Nobody was taking it seriously. And then it was in 2014, it was, the hash wars started around 2014. Bitcoin can't scale. And then that went all the way into 2017 where the hash wars really exploded. And you had actually them fork the chain of Bitcoin. The idea was that the amount of transactions per block, the block size wasn't big enough. They wanted to upgrade the block size. They wanted to make it expandable. They wanted to do all these crazy things to it. So you've seen 3 different chains fork off of Bitcoin. And all of the exchanges around the world decided, hey, whatever chain acquires over the most hash power at the end of this specific date, we'll consider that consensus and that will become Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin Cash came of that. I think Bitcoin SV came of that. And at one point, those could have became Bitcoin, right? But nobody wanted to not serve their self-interest. There was no value proposition for you to change the underlying protocol that was Bitcoin. And here we are today, and it's been running now for 15 years, and it hasn't stopped running. I was able to send you, $500 million 10 years ago, and it's guaranteed that it's going to get there. And I'm going to send you $500 million today, and it's guaranteed to get there. And it's never failed, never once. And the blockchain's never stopped running. And that's the most important part about it is it's never stopped running. Bitcoin blockchains aren't supposed to stop running. You hear things like Solana and Ethereum and Avalanche and all these blockchains that basically restart every time there's a fucking problem. Well, once that blockchain stops and restarts, inherently the code can change, right? You understand that? Like that's what makes Bitcoin is it's never stopped running. Blockchains don't stop running.
My answer is not as sophisticated as yours, but it's part of what you said. I always say, well, it makes no sense because the same people that hate Trump hate Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Right? They want to regulate it. Now, I want to jump back to where we started. So going back, right? So the Bitcoin, my idea was if Bitcoin becomes one of the reserves, and then you added if the debt goes in it, Bitcoin becomes more expensive, then you sell it, pay off the debt. So here's what he announced. This new agency will collect our tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources, said Donald. Well, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Said Donald Trump. Trump says that his inauguration, January 20th, 2025, will be the birth date of the External Revenue Service. And this is his truth. For far too long, we have relied on taxing our great people using the Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS. Through soft and pathetically weak trade agreements, the American economy has delivered growth and prosperity to the world while taxing ourselves. It is time for that to change. I'm today announcing that I will create the External Revenue Service to collect our tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources. We will begin charging those that make money off of us with trade, and they will start paying finally their fair share. January 20th, 2025 will be the birthday of the External Revenue Service. Make America great again. So there we know at least, one more of his executive orders that will be signed. But and I like it. I love it. And I think, world leaders everywhere else, they fear Trump. So they're going to play ball. But like the FBI, these are all executive order agencies. The next guy comes in, swipes his spend, gets rid of them. How do you think this plays out in the long run? Because taxation should have ended when World War II ended. We all know that. That's the only reason they started taxing us. But no, they continued it. They raised it. They dropped the tariffs. And we are one of the only modern countries where the government survives off its people instead of off trade.
So I think that you're going to watch a lot of things happen. If it would be my absolute best guess, is going to see you're going to see all of the bad actors inside the Trump administration and all of the people that are going against Trump are going to be investigated for the crimes that they've committed. Every single member of our government, every single member of our Congress, I think is going to be, you watch what Bukele did. It took him about 3 years to do it. But at some point, the resistance is going to take it too far. Like, let's just use the cartels in El Salvador, right? So the cartels turned, along with the United States government, over a 60-year period, basically with US aid and the CIA, we turned El Salvador into the murder capital of the world. And the cartels ran every aspect of that government. The government was rotted to the core. The Supreme Court was rotted to the core. Everything was rotted to the core in El Salvador. And then comes a man, this Bukele, right? And he starts saying that, the government needs to serve the people. And he needs to deal with this gang issue. And they can't have El Salvador when the cartels run everything. So over a 2-year period, he started to get more strict and get a little bit more power and a little bit more power. But he still had this, just the woke mind virus inside of his government, and the cartels still control a portion of his government. And he couldn't get a bill passed. And the bill that he wanted to pass was basically to take away the rights of some of these cartel members. So in the process, the cartel members wanted to send Bukele a message. And one day they went out and just slaughtered innocent Salvadorians, 62 people in one day, just to send a message. Oh, you're going to crack down on us? Okay, here's how that's going to go for you. And that was all he needed. At that exact point in time, he had enough pressure to force the members of Congress that were against him to vote for him. And what he did is he changed the law that basically said, if you have a gang symbol on your body, your face is tattooed from head to toe, and you have any marks that indicate how many people you've murdered for your gang, that is enough for us to remove your constitutional rights and send you right to prison for life. That's it, period. You don't get a second chance. You don't get a right to an attorney. You don't get a right to a trial, because that's how these cartel members were getting out, because the courts were so corrupted. They were using their control over the judges in the court system to basically stay out free citizens and just continue their reign of terror. So nobody would come forward. The citizens wouldn't come forward and rat on the cartel members because they were afraid the cartel members were going to kill them. So once he did this, and I think you're going to see the same thing in the Trump administration. We think we're seeing it with the fires in California. I think we're seeing it with the hurricanes, these directed energy weapon attacks. I think at one point, somebody's going to oppose them, and they're going to take shit too far. And it's going to give Trump almost dictator control over Congress, the Senate, the Supreme Court. And I think what he ends up doing at one point, just like Bukele did a year ago, was walked into a room. And I think he might do it at the State of the Union. That would be the best place to do it. When everybody's sitting in there in the State of the Union, you walk in and you say, as of today, I'm ordering my sergeant at arms to create an independent agency, and I want every single person in this room investigated. This is the government that is supposed to serve we the people, and it seems like it is no longer serving the people. So the only way we get to the bottom of this and we restore the power back to the people is by removing the corrupt individuals who are preventing that from happening. So I want every single person in this room investigated. That's exactly what Bukele did. And Bukele said, even myself, right? And we know that Trump, I mean, if there was any dirt on Trump, gosh damn, that would have been front and center news. He would have been indicted 100 times over. So Trump's already been indicted and investigated enough. What we need to have is the rest of our government investigated. So I think that that's what's going to come of it. And when that happens, I think you're going to see these things go from an executive order to solidified in law that is almost immutable, almost part of the Constitution, where they can never, ever again, we're never going to ever give these scumbags enough power for them to vote and take away our freedoms again. My best guess.
Yeah, dude, that would be so sick. Now, here's an idea. I don't know if you saw the video or not, but I think it was like 4 days. Charlie Kirk and Matt Gaetz were doing like an open town hall little press conference. And somebody asked Matt Gaetz, somebody from the audience asked him, he said, well, what do the special interest, lobbyists do all day? He said, well, in the morning, what they do is they go to breakfast and then they run around the halls of Congress. And they come up to you with $1,000 to $5,000 and say, hey, we're from here or from here. We really need you to vote on this way, and just give them the money. But isn't that bribery? How is bribery in this country illegal, but lobbyists are not? And then you got the AIPAC lobbyists. I, as a devoted Christian, I go crazy when I hear we got to stand with the Zionists. Zionists hate us. They hate our Lord and Savior. They think Mary was a prostitute. Like, read the Talmuds. That's what they follow. And it's like, why is it like this? Well, because everyone's been bought. it's not a bribe, it's special interest donors, right? And lobbyists. How do we make special interest donors and lobbyists illegal on the same playing field as, bribery?
You know, I think that's, dude, I'm so gassed up. You got right on the Israel topic, because I think that is the #1 threat to national security. I think that's where the root of all of our problems stem from. There's an elite group of Jewish oligarchies that have created a system that lines their own gosh damn pockets, and they've acquired so much power within our own government that you're right. Things like bribery aren't bribery when it's a lobbyist, right? Same thing. You're not an insider trader when you're a member of Congress who has access to all of this information, and they're making millions, if not billions of dollars lining their own pockets. That is the root of all of this, all of it. Everything comes from Israel's control over our government, the ADL, AIPAC, all of them. And I was a person that wasn't awake, right? I was a complete sheep 3 years ago, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And I wasn't even big into the Israel stuff. I wasn't even paying attention until I started to go into the border stuff. And then I start looking at this border, and I start to wake up and realize that they control 98% of our politicians. And that only leads you to conclude one thing. Well, if Israel controls our politicians, and they will jump over a fence backwards, naked, and while doing jumping jacks to send another $50 billion to Israel, but they won't shut down our border, and they won't speak the same way about our open border as they do about defending Israel's borders, well, then we have a real effing problem here, Vlad. And then that makes you think. Then you start to look into the child trafficking. You go, okay, wait, these children are getting raped at our border because of these scumbags over in Israel are lining their pockets while absolutely devastating our country. And then you look in the Iraq war and you go, oh, wait, I never had a problem with Muslims, never did. And then all of a sudden it went from, you look next to somebody and they're Muslim, and it was like, it scared you. Like after 9/11, you're like, shit, like are these terrorists? And then what you watch them do is they watch them pit Muslims against Christians, right? While we fucking kill each other, and they get fucking filthy rich off of it. And I think you're starting to see everyone in our country wake up. I think Kash Patel is one of the most important positions in his declassification task force. And I think it's not going to be long once you start to declassify these documents and they can't hide behind, oh, it's anti-Semitic. No, it's the fucking truth. It is the gosh damn truth. Here's the evidence. Here's how it played. Here's how it went down. And here's how we got fucked. And as soon as you start to see those declassification documents come out, you're going to see people like me digging in and making documentaries. I'm in the works right now, traveling across the world to go into 6 different countries and 7 different states over the next 8 weeks to bring not just a couple more documentaries on child trafficking, but also one on this corruption, this control over our government. And I think it's going to be a really big eye opener when people start to wake up and see who's controlling things, who's pulling the strings, and how much power they actually have.
I'm going to give you a little nugget right now. Well, first, my grandma was Jewish from my father's side. I have family in Israel. There's a difference between not liking Jewish people and Zionists. These are 2 different things.
Agreed.
I have Jewish Christian relatives who live in Tel Aviv right now who cannot go outside with the cross on their right. They have to secretly go to church. It's a whole thing. But
oh shit.
When it comes to the Zionists, Ukraine, Zionists. So there's the greater map of Israel, right? They believe what Israel is supposed to look like. And it goes from the bottom where they are now. It goes through, I think, Libya, a little bit of Iraq, Iran, Syria. It goes up around the Black Sea, and Donbass, Ukraine, is the tip of this new greater Israel. During the Soviet Union, all the Jews kind of lived where Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine are. One of the most famous Jewish rabbis was born in Donbass, Ukraine, during the Soviet Union. Then in the early 80s, he moved to New York. He's never been to Israel, but he was their prophet. He died in 92, and even Bibi, their prime minister, Netanyahu, would travel to New York for his prayers on how to run Israel. Like, just look into it. And right now, this new year, my wife's from Ukraine. They don't like Zelensky. They hate what's happening there. They want the war to end. They voted, like all of the Ukrainians that I know voted for Trump, so the war ends. So the New Year's, instead of them celebrating the Christian Orthodox that they have for thousands of years, it's the Jewish stars everywhere. All these rabbis flew in. And they even told him, and there it was on the mainstream news media, Ukraine, if you want to win this war, you need to leave Christianity and join Judaism. It's a spiritual war above all else.
What
this is happening in Ukraine right now. Then Kryvyi Rog, there's a city in Donbass called Kryvyi Rog. Kryvyi Rog means so a horn, rog is horn, kriva, crooked. So according to the Talmud teachings, there's going to be a city that's going to be called Kryvyi Rog that belongs to the new Greater Israel, and it's in Donbass, Ukraine, and it's crazy. And so the Zionists, they don't care about who dies, Jews, Americans, Muslims. They just want their money, their power, and control. And right now, they are in Ukraine saying, hey, leave Christianity. We know this is the faith of your ancestors. You gotta come to the Talmud Jewish faith, that you guys are real Jews, and this is where the new Israel and New Jerusalem is gonna be. I'm telling you, so 3 years of war. Now they're tired of war. Now they're like, we'll do anything. It's like the perfect game plan, right? You fight the people for 3 years. You let the war go on. You don't stop it. You don't let negotiations happen. And then when people are sick and tired and hungry and just like, I can't anymore. Hey, you want this to end? Join our faith.
Bro,
and they openly say Putin works for us. Zelensky works for us. They all work for us. They openly say it. It's crazy. And it's like, and then I speak to my Christian relatives. Well, we Christians got to stand with the Israelites. I'm like, where does it say that in the New Testament? The New Testament tells us, for there is no longer Jew, Gentile, Greek, man, woman, free nor slave. We are all in Christ. That's it. There is no, when Jesus came, there's no more the Israelites' time. That's it. We are now, you either belong to him or you don't. And so they invest this money and they use Christians that don't read their Bibles, especially that don't read their Bibles. But I believe, what do governments fear something more than anything else, is people that believe that there's a higher power than the government. But if you go to that person that believes there's a higher power than the government and tell him your higher power chose these people, you control them. That's the only way to go around that. You make them believe something that's not scriptural. You twist the scriptures. You pay whatever you got to do, and then boom, and then they do. Man, when I was at Mar-a-Lago, I hate saying this, but when I was at Mar-a-Lago 3 weeks ago, we had dinner. It was like Tucker Carlson, Trump. It's a 30-minute opening. 25 of it was dedicated to Israel.
No shit.
They had the Israeli flags. They sang the Israeli national anthem. They prayed for America once. They prayed for Israel 3 times. They sang our like National Guardsmen went up, sang the national anthem, then sang the Israeli national anthem. Then a rabbi came out and said all these prayers for like 10 minutes about Israel. And I'm just standing there like, what is like we, the people that like my group, were looking at each other. I'm like, we're in America. Like, this was at Mar-a-Lago. We were there December 10th. I was there December 10th.
What the fuck? What was going on there? What was the event?
It was like a Tucker Carlson Future of America.
What the fuck? At a Tucker Carlson event was doing that?
Yeah, and General Flynn. So check it out.
What the fuck, dude? Wasn't General Flynn just what?
And then General Flynn came out and spoke after them.
I don't trust him either, dude.
It's for me, it's like, look, you can respect a country and they can be your ally, but why is it that so many Trump patriots are okay with Israel, but you were so against when the Congress stood up and waved the flags of Ukraine. Ukraine. Remember?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, fuck yeah, I do. Yeah.
Extra 60. You were not okay with that, but you're okay. And again, I go because a lot of the Patriot movement, many people are Christians, and it's like, pick up your Bible, read it yourself. The Old Testament, yes, it had to do with Israel only because of Abraham. Because of Abraham was the only man faithful to God, and he said, your children will give birth to the Savior of the world. Then, when the time came, the Savior of the world was born. The veil in the temple was torn, which represents now it is no longer just me and these people. I'm out for the world. And then Apostle Paul, who was the craziest of the Jews, like he was only Jews are saved. Then the Lord saves him. He has a vision. He repents. And then he becomes the most influential to this day preacher to the Gentiles. So this dude was he was a Pharisee, right? He was like the leader of the synagogue. Only Jews allowed. Don't even look at them. Don't shake your hand, like shake their hand, nothing. Like even if you see one being scourged to death, you say nothing because they're Gentiles. He became the preacher to the Gentiles. And he's the one who writes, there is no longer man, woman, Greek, Gentile, Jew, free or slave. It doesn't matter who you are in the physical. You either belong to him or you don't. And when he saw Apostle Peter being a hypocrite, acting one way in front of the Jews and another way in front of the Gentiles, he called him out in front of everyone. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, what? He's like, you're playing the hypocrite. This, what you're doing is wrong. You can't be doing that. We're all the same. He died for everyone. But again, it goes back to the big money, especially in the churches and Soviet Union. People are, well, Soviet Union was really bad. Who funded the Soviet Union? Like my relatives come from the Russian Empire, like was the most Christian empire ever, the Romanov family, right? But then they ruled from 1615 till 1917. But then the Bolsheviks, right? They spread a rumor because people wanted to protest. They spread a rumor and said, hey guys, the king has everything under control. Go home, grab your popcorn, and enjoy the show. And then the king, his wife, and 9 other family members were beheaded in a basement by godless cowards. Does it remind you of a movement today that tells you to relax everything?
Oh, fuck yeah, it does.
I asked the General Flynn once right to his face. I said, Flynn, what's the plan? he cussed me out. He yelled at me. This was like February of last year. He's like, the plan is to effing vote. And there's this guy, like 5 people behind me in the Q hat. He's standing there like, oh, I hope General Flynn sees my Q hat. Then when he sees what I'm getting, he took it off and hit it. But he's like, if you believe that nonsense, like you're not a Trump supporter. And then when I try to show a video of General Flynn reacting like that to like one of my Q friends, they don't even want to watch. Oh, he has to pretend like that. He has to make sure, he's all hiding. I mean, he's hiding what? That he's in charge, but doesn't the Q movement put all the secrets out on the internet for everyone to see and hear anyways? I don't know, but
dude, the Q movement's fucking weird, dude, and General Flynn's fucking weird too, man. I could tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about him offline. I can't even say it on here, and you'll fucking be like, what the fuck, dude? It's like a cult. The people that follow that man around, and I don't fucking get it. But I think there was a reason that he wasn't invited to Trump's inauguration, right? Or to when Trump won the election, Flynn was not invited to that event, right? And there's something there, right? Why hasn't Flynn been picked for any of these positions? Why is Flynn not getting, Secretary of Defense and Pete Hashtag is, right? I don't know. Maybe that's part of the plan. Maybe the plan is to, when you put all these people into these positions of power, right? And if Pete, like you look at Mockingbird Media, and it never died, right? Mockingbird Media never. The CIA was never going to give control of the media back to the free press. They were just never going to do it. So, which means that you would have to assume that every single person in that media is either CIA or Mossad or a Fed in one way or another, right? So, which means Pete is, and you look at this guy, and he's a Zionist. I mean, he literally worships and says Zionism and Americanism are the same thing. No, they're fucking not. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, dude, but they're fucking not. And the only thing I would think of is that you're just drawing all these people out. Like if Trump is compromised, we're fucked, right? If he's really believes this Israel first bullshit and he's really going to sell our country out to Israel, I don't know. Maybe, just maybe Israel will become the 58th state of the United States, right? Maybe he's going to take all these countries and he's going to make it one. He's going to say, no, this is now fucking America, right? It's no longer Israel, or it's Israel America, whatever. But it's no longer going to follow these random Israel rules that Benjamin Netanyahu has put into place. It's going to have the same constitution as America, and it's going to be ran like an American country. And we're going to have fucking peace in the Middle East. And that's that simple. You attack Israel at this point, you attack America. We're going to give the land back to the Palestinian people. We're going to go back to the Abraham Accords. I don't fucking know. And maybe at the same time, he's putting all these people into these positions of power because you can fire them, right? Like you got, what's her name? Who's the Israeli ambassador? What's her name?
I'm not sure.
Gosh, I forget her name. She's the worst one of them all. Oh gosh, I can't even think of her name right now. But all of the people that I'm seeing put in these positions, he's fired cabinet member positions before. You can't. It's a lot harder to fire a congressman or a senator than it is to fire one of these positions. So if you remove them from their position, you allow somebody else to take their position in the election. You're either, even if that second person that takes them is loyal to Israel, it's a little bit less. They'll have a little bit less power than the person that's been in Congress for 10 or 20 or 50 years, right? So I think it's easier to take out the key players by putting them into positions where you can then fire them. And I think that it has to happen. Like Trump's never going to carry out his agenda when he's serving Israel and he's serving this elite Zionist group and serving the American people. So if he wants to carry out this agenda, he's going to have no choice but to investigate these people and have them arrested for the crimes they've committed, or not, or we're going into some, futuristic hellhole in 15-minute cities, and Trump's just part of the globalist agenda. I don't fucking know. What do you think?
I think if you look at Trump, what he posted, but he posts so much. So he posted a video of a
want that? I'll grab it while you're talking.
Yeah, where he posted, it's about Netanyahu, and then Netanyahu's like, I'm not going to Trump's inauguration. Trump's like, I don't care. I think Trump, I don't know. We'll see. And I hate people saying this is all part of the plan. This pick is a part of the, like, why would I marry someone that I know is going to cheat on me? Is that part of the plan? It's like the same thing. Like, and if Trump was really president the last 4 years and secretly running everything, he did not deserve our vote because the last 4 years sucked. But I don't believe he was. They obviously they did what they did in 2020. They rigged the election, and then they thought, Trump. Oh, you sent this right here. Okay, wait.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I sent you the one of the. Yeah, I sent it in the live chat, so you can pull it up there. And then I'm looking for the video of itself. I haven't found that one yet.
Yep. It's so. Wait, I was told. But I was told Trump is nothing but an Israeli shield. Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu has reportedly canceled plans to attend Trump's inauguration. This comes after Trump shares a Truth Social post of Jeffrey Sachs ripping Netanyahu as a deep, dark son of a bitch aiming to drag America into Middle Eastern wars. Yeah.
And I got that video right there. I posted that video in the chat with you, so you can pull that up as well if you'd like.
Yep. Doing that right now.
Yeah, why would Trump, if Trump is really controlled by them and is doing their bidding, maybe because everybody's seeing that it's time to end this war and they need to get rid of Netanyahu, and Trump's kind of giving the green light to say, go ahead, take him out. I think a drone flies into his house, but you play it.
Yep. All right, here's the video.
The war in Syria. And you may actually hear from grown-up reporters who are lying through their teeth or ignorant beyond imagining that, oh, the war in Syria, yes, Russia intervened in Syria. Well, do you know that that Obama tasks the CIA to overthrow the Syrian government, starting 4 years before Russia intervened? What kind of nonsense is that? And how many times did the New York Times report on Operation Timber Sycamore, which was the presidential order to the CIA to overthrow Bashar al-Assad? 3 times in 10 years. This is not democracy. This is a game. And it's a game of narrative. Why did the U.S. invade Iraq in 2003? Well, first of all, it was completely phony pretenses. It wasn't, oh, we were so wrong, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. They actually did focus groups in the fall of 2002 to find out what would sell that war to the American people. Abe Schultzky, if you want to know the name of the PR genius. They did focus groups on the war. They wanted the war all the time. They had to figure out how to sell the war to the American people, how to scare the shit out of the American people. It was a phony war. Where did that war come from? You know what? It's quite surprising. That war came from Netanyahu, actually. You know that? It's weird. And the way it is that Netanyahu had from 1995 onward the theory that the only way we're going to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah is by toppling the governments that support them. That's Iraq, Syria, and Iran. And the guy's nothing if not obsessive. And he's still trying to get us to fight Iran this day, this week. He's a deep, dark son of a bitch, sorry to tell you. Because he's gotten us into endless wars, and because of the power of all of this in the U.S. politics, he's gotten his way. But that war was totally phony. So what is this democracy versus dictatorship? Come on. These are not even sensible terms.
And just to wrap up, the prophet, the guy, I think his name was like the rabbi, born in Donbass, Kravarok, in like the early late 80s, late 70s, moves to New York. He starts this, like the whole Jewish movement in New York, in Brooklyn, he started. He's the first one. Then Netanyahu, there are videos, Netanyahu, all of Hollywood would fly to him in the late 80s, early 90s, and he'd be like, bless me. And he'd like give them $1. May your media company be blessed. May your TV movies be blessed. May you never do anything anti-Semitic, and give them like $1. That's like the Talmud way to bless them. There's videos of Netanyahu coming to him, and he looks Netanyahu in the eyes and he says, you are going to be the last, because we wait for the Antichrist to come. They are waiting for Christ to come, who's actually going to be Lucifer in the flesh. He looks him in the eyes and says, you are going to be, this was before Netanyahu was ever a prime minister at all. He says, you're going to be the last prime minister of Israel. Your job is to clean the land of all the filth, which is anyone that's not a Jew, and then you will give the keys of the land to the Messiah himself. And so I believe he lives with that prophecy, and every day, you're right, I got to clean the land. I got to wipe everything out. I got to take this territory back. That's ours. On top of that, the tunnels, remember the tunnels with the bloody mattresses? Mm-hmm. Whenever a Jewish mini rabbi or a kid, that's a boy that dies in New York, they would take him to the tunnels, and they would, so that he bleeds, because many of them believe that the one that died in 92 is the real Messiah, and he's going to come back from the dead when the right Jewish rabbi dies and his blood is spilled, then he will rise. Telling you, we were in New York City last August. We went into Brooklyn. His posters are everywhere. Dude's been dead since 92. I was born in 92. Yeah, it's crazy. But this obsessive religion, we find it many times in Christianity and the Muslim faith, where people just follow a man, and they follow these teachings. They don't have critical thinking to study and dig. This is why, like I say, I'm a Christian, but I'm like they think I'm the black sheep in the Christian faith, but I'm actually the one saying, guys, stop, ignore the nonsense. That's not right. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. God bless you, man. I might be, when I'm working on this film, I might be contacting you. You are a wealth of knowledge, my friend. Hell, I might even come out to sit down and do an interview with you if you got time in person.
Let's do it. I'm down anytime. I know the Ukraine thing a lot more than most people think. Right now, I have family fighting on both sides.
No shit. Yeah. Who, if you had to say something, who's an expert on the Talmud? Are you somebody that could speak deeply on the Talmud? Because that's what that's the one key piece that I'm like, somebody that knows that book inside and out.
No, I don't know it inside and out. I know the Bible really well. So when it comes to the Bible, I've read the Bible cover to cover dozens of times, and since I got saved 11 years ago.
Where are you located at?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. I haven't been to Arizona. I've wanted to come out there for a while too. How's the migrant thing? Is it slowed down out there?
I mean, it's most of the people that I meet speak English. They voted for Trump. Mexicans that voted for Trump. My Uber driver last week. No. What am I saying last week? A couple months ago, like a week before Trump, before the election, he's like, I've been here illegally for 15 years. I just got my citizenship finally. I'm like, who are you voting for? Donald Trump. He's like, I've been here. I'm like, how'd you stay? He's like, well, because for 15 years, I actually worked the job. I paid taxes, never broke the law. He's like, and then I got an attorney, and they looked at my background. They're like, you actually started a little business. You employed some natural born, he's like, okay, we'll give you first a green card, then he got a citizenship. And everyone's, as you know, Arizona gave Trump the biggest, swing state victory. But I mean, I can look into Talmuds, and like whenever I want to destroy some, these Christian, they think it's biblical, but it's not. It's not like, oh, they're our brothers, they love us. No, they don't. The Muslims are closer to Christians than the Talmudic Jews are.
Is that
Muslims,
Judaism?
at least, huh?
Is that what they call Judaism?
Well, yes. So the Talmud, so they all read the Talmud, but then there's different sects. Like in the Christian faith, there's Baptist, Pentecostal, there's the Orthodox Christians, there's the Catholic Church, right? Then there's the crazies like the Mormons, who are not even, those guys are worshiping Satan. And then there's like kind of like the Muslims. There's your moderate Muslim. I was born in Kyrgyzstan, Muslim country, but we Christians got along with them. They didn't want to behead us. Yep. Right. But then there's the Afghanistan, which is next door to where I was born. We would die, especially in the 90s. We'd be beheaded. And so there's these different sects. And so the most extreme, far right, Talmudic, Jewish, right, religious people are Netanyahu and his cabinet. This is the most extreme, far right, government that Israel has ever had.
Jeez, so, man, you're such a wealth of knowledge, man. I thank you for bringing me on your show.
This guy, let me grab his book right here. I've met this guy. I've interviewed him. He's a Christian. He's a Jewish Christian pastor. Some of his understandings are like a little bit, well, the Jews deserve their own homeland, and I agree with that. They do. But they're trying to do much more than just have a homeland, this government right now. Most of the people in Israel want to just live and not fight wars, like 90% of the people there. But there's that small fraction, kind of like what we had in the last 4 years in America. Mm-hmm. Very far liberal, super crazies to the left, and there's such a little amount of them, but they grabbed onto power and everyone else suffered. That's what's happening in Israel. Super far right, religious, extremists who tell us, oh, the Muslims, dude, I can show you videos of like, I got to go through my phone and my cloud. I got videos of like the rabbis that teach Netanyahu sit there and say, well, we got to make sure the Christians and the Muslims never get along, because if they get along, then we're in trouble. We got to keep them at war. Mm-hmm. Dude,
that's their biggest fear is Christianity and Muslims coming together and uniting and standing in solidarity against whatever bullshit agenda that they're trying to push through. So
even the Romanov family of the Russian Empire. So there was one faith they did not allow, and it was not even Judaism. It was the Talmudic Judaism. You could have been a Muslim, a Christian, atheist. You could live in the most Christian empire the world has ever seen. The Russian Empire, which from the early 16th to the early 19th. But if you're a Talmudic Jew, you would be deported. You're out. We want nothing to do with you. And then it was the Talmudic Jews that sponsored, paid for the Bolsheviks to come in, spread the rumors first, right? Don't worry, grab your popcorn, enjoy the show. And then they come in and just slaughter everyone.
Man, yeah. I watched Europa for the first time last night or this week, just parts of it. And I don't even know how to explain the feeling I had when I was learning what they did to the Christians. I was just like, I mean, it was just evil, man. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I can't believe that part of history has just been memory hold, and they've been like created their own version of history, which is just seems like a complete lie.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always been like the Talmud goes against Christianity more than anything else. They believe that we are like, because we say our Savior was a Jew, we are dishonoring them, their faith, and everything they stand for, That's why the Talmudic Jews hate Christians more than ever, but they realize that they can actually use this book against us. The ones that believe in the Bible, they can use it. Then again, it goes back to, even the Bible says, my God, the Lord was speaking in the Old Testament, says, my people. So he admits these are his people. He said they perish due to lack of knowledge. Some translations say they die. Some say they suffer, but the end result is the same: death, destruction, suffering, due to lack of knowledge. So God says they belong to me, but because they're just stupid, right? They refuse to study, to pray, to understand. They perish, they suffer. And this is what I think is really happening we are a Judeo-Christian nation. What do you mean? How? Like, those two have nothing in common. Yeah.
Man,
all right, brother. Yeah, let's
talk
do
soon,
it, brother. Anytime. God bless you.
All right, God bless you, bud. Thanks, man. Peace.